Hi, everybody. Welcome to Gilda's Club Chicago's Surviving and Thriving monthly series. We are focusing on cancer and cannabis today. And we have with us Nancy Matulef from Curaleaf. Is it Curaleaf Holdings, I believe, right? Or is it dispensary?
Yeah, I work in a dispensary. I work in Deerfield.
Okay, so there you go. We are really excited to have Nancy with us to discuss this topic. It's something that's very interesting. And Nancy has a wealth of knowledge. So without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Nancy and enjoy the presentation, everybody. If there are questions, again, please hold them till the very end, and you can put something in the chat box if you'd like as well. Okay, take it away, Nancy.
Thank you, Ross. I'm so thrilled to be here tonight with you all, and I'm honored to join you for a discussion on cancer and cannabis as part of the series here at Gilda's Club. And I'm here just to share my personal story of what I went through and how I gained experience from using cannabis for cancer symptom management and now post-treatment, since I'm about 5 years away from when I was first in treatment. And also from what I've gained knowledge from working with hundreds of people over the years and the privilege to work with them and talk to them and help them manage a myriad of health conditions and symptoms. And let me first start by saying I am not a healthcare professional. I'm just a regular person that went through a really traumatic and kind of terrifying experience, and how I use cannabis to help give me relief. And I want to just share that information. And so I don't claim to cure anything, but I will, and I won't be endorsing any products, but I'll be talking about certain products that are in the dispensaries and how to dose them and stuff like that. And cannabis isn't for everybody. Some people just don't tolerate it well. It's, I have a friend that can't even use the most minimalist amount of it. It makes her ill. So it's not for everybody. For me, I know that it helped get me to an NED and no evidence of disease in my case. And I feel like it helped save my life, really. And it's given me a quality of life back that I didn't have post-treatment. I was very ill. And I'm here able to work, and I didn't think I would be able to be here doing this. So, and my goal is just to share that with others and educate people on how to dose it and and all the different consumption methods that are out there, because it's not just all about smoking it. I'm the lead counselor assisting patients and acquiring their medical cards too. So I have a vast experience doing that, assisting with that. That website is kind of hard to navigate. If anybody's been on the IDPH website, it is not a lot of fun. So back in 2017, when I applied for my medical card, it took about 90 days to acquire it, which is a ridiculous thing because I was almost done with treatment by the time I had access to products. I had a friend that was just supplying me with smokable, so I was able to at least cope and get through treatment with the nausea and vomiting. And but once I did get my card, it was overwhelming, the amount of products that were available. I didn't know how to use them. And the industry was so young at that point that there weren't people that had, knowledge in order to, give direction on how to use anything. So that was a challenge. And so once I finished treatment in 2018, I knew I wanted to get in this industry and be able to help people navigate it, because it's just too overwhelming. So since then, I'm certified in patient counseling, and I've been in the industry for 5 years, which is quite an accomplishment. It is a very transient industry. It's to have longevity in it is rare, so I'm proud of that. I just celebrated my anniversary last week, so that's pretty awesome. And I'm hoping that all of you have had access to medical cannabis, were able to use it when you needed it. I know that there's like 25 to 40% of patients that are using it in some form or another, mostly to manage pain. Anxiety is a very common thing I hear from people in treatment too. But it just helps you cope. It helps you sleep. It helps you feel better. First, I'd just like to start by talking about the stigma that's around it, because it is a federally legal substance still. It's a Schedule I drug, which is on the same realm of heroin, which is a ridiculousness. It's been marked as having no medicinal value, which is false. And the National Institute of Drug Abuse said it has a 9 potential rate to develop dependence, which is, I believe, not a very accurate percentage either. And opioid addiction is a problem in this country. So I know I work with people that are trying to get off opioids. They use cannabis to do that. It's not an easy thing to do. You should always do that with your doctor's assistance and monitoring. But I myself was addicted to opioids during treatment and used cannabis to get off of them. And it was an extremely excruciating 2 weeks I went through. But without cannabis, I don't know how I would have gotten through it. It was brutal. So, and also there are people that are trying to get off alcohol, and they will use cannabis to do that too. So it is a useful tool for those kinds of things. And more companies are removing cannabis as a testing for when they're hiring people. They're removing it from that test cycle, and I'm glad to see that, because that will help remove some of the stigma too. But hopefully we'll get there. But it's probably going to be until we're federally legal, and that could take a little while. And so I'm sure if you've shared your journey, if you've used cannabis, and when you're speaking to people, like if I'm in a public space, if I'm at a party and I share that what I do, people ask me what I do. And if I tell them that I'm a cannabis counselor, I get a whole myriad of people that come up and, comment about it and say, oh, I had a horrible experience. And I know that that's a very common thing. People will take gummies that, others give them, and they don't know how many milligrams it is. They don't know anything about it. And then they have a horrible experience. They either feel ill, they throw up, and then they want to warn everybody they know not to use it, because it can be scary. It's not a pleasant experience to overconsume. I've done it many times, and it's not a fun thing to do. And as a cancer survivor, I hear too, oh, well, you had cancer, so that's an acceptable reason to use it. You're not judged as harshly as other people are. If you have PTSD or ADHD and you're using it, you're judged a little more harshly. So, I think also outdated views and accurate and misinformation is out there too. So I'm hoping to clear some of that up and answer any questions that people might have or concerns. Like I said, it's not for everybody. So let's see. And also, I always have to say this: it's no one's business how and what you do to help yourself live a happy and healthy life, as long as it doesn't harm anybody else. So a little bit about my story. It was towards the end of 16. I was 53 years old, and I'm a personal trainer. Before I got this job, I was a trainer for about 15 years. I was in the best shape of my life. I was training to be in a show, actually. And I was eating a healthy diet and running and working out 4 or 5 days a week. And my first symptoms were fatigue. I was having constipation and occasional blood in my stool. And I didn't think much of it because it wasn't unusual for me. And I didn't have a history in my family, so I didn't really think anything about it. I know I was late to beginning my colonoscopy. So I knew that that was in my future, but I didn't think anything about it at that point. When I ended up in the emergency room shortly after that, about 6 months went by, and I knew I needed to get my health under control. So I went and saw my doctor. She did a digital exam and found a mass in my rectum. So I went and got my colonoscopy. And I woke up to my husband tearfully saying they found cancer. So I wasn't completely shocked, but nobody, when you get that diagnosis, it hits you like a brick. So at that time, see here, after scans, they found that it was a 3 centimeter distal tumor. It was a low grade tumor. It was stage 2, T3N0M0. So I was relieved that it hadn't metastasized. And my oncologist was very optimistic and thought that I would have a good outcome. And at that point, I decided to be in a clinical trial. And so the order of the treatment was shifted and changed, because at that time, the normal protocol would be radiation, surgery, chemo, And in the trial, it was actually mixing it, changing it up and making it chemo, radiation, and then surgery, which did provide a better outcome for most people because you had time to heal. You were, going through radiation, it's ravaging your body, and then you'd have to go into surgery, and it would be a hard space to heal. So I'm happy to say that this is now the standard of treatment for this type of cancer. My oncologist even told me they don't even do radiation for what I had. So I'm dealing with the fallout from radiation damage to my body mostly. And then post-treatment, I did, because I was 86 pounds when I finished treatment and literally got Graves' disease. So I've been dealing with that and trying to manage that since, and that has been quite the challenge, almost more challenging than treatment was for me. And I did 8 rounds of Folfox and was due to do 28 rounds of radiation, but I could only complete 20. I ended up hospitalized with radiation enteritis, and then I could not eat. They had to put me on TPN. I was on, which is total parenteral nutrition. And I was on that for about 10 weeks. I could not eat. I slowly integrated food from that point on. And it's been a journey. I mean, it was hard to gain weight, having Graves' disease. I don't know if anybody's familiar with that. It's has to do with a hyperactive thyroid and my immune system attacking my thyroid. So it was, I'm still struggling, and it's here 5.5 years later. So it's it's been a journey. And I was then declared NED in March of 18. So I decided at that point to forego surgery against my surgeon's wishes. He really, like they said in those days, they did surgery. They gave you a temporary bag or a permanent bag. And I decided to do a watch and wait. And in this country, was not developed at that time. So they developed a protocol for me. It was, because they were doing it in Europe and whatnot. So my team did develop a protocol, and I've been doing that. I was going in for 3 months sigmoidoscopes and whatnot. And so and now I'm here today to say that I'm doing so well. But dealing with the fallout of radiation has been tough. Damage to my colon, damage to my lower extremities, everything in my pelvis has been affected by it, every organ. And so without cannabis, I don't know if I would be fully functional right now, to tell you the truth. So it's been a blessing. And as you can see on the pictures there, I was involved in some of the colorectal cancer walks, the Climb for a Cure. I met so many amazing people. There's so many great support groups out there for colorectal cancer. My friends and family were my rock. My husband is a rock star. He's amazing. He's been by my side every minute since then. And I'm very blessed, that's all I can say. And so moving on here, just a little bit of information about the background of what cannabis is. Not everybody is familiar with the science behind it and how it affects our bodies. The female plants are the budding plants. They're the ones that produce the buds, if you've seen the actual flower. And seeds are really 50-50. They're 50 male and 50 female. So the males don't produce the buds, only the female plants do. It's indigenous to Eastern Asia, and it's cosmopolitan. So now it's worldwide. It's being cultivated worldwide, luckily. And so people have broader access to it. There's over 540 chemical compounds. So THC is just one of those. Terpenes and cannabinoids are what the effects are and the flavors are and the smell. And so I'm going to go over some of that really quickly so you understand the science behind of why it works so well with our bodies. So there, let's move on here. So in our bodies, we have something that's called the endocannabinoid system. It helps regulate and balance key bodily functions. And there's 2 groups of receptors in our bodies, CB1 and CB2. And as you can see on the illustration there, CB1 is mostly located in our organs, our immune system, our reproductive system. And CB2 is more of the peripheral organs, can see there, and CB1 is mostly in the brain, as you can see, mostly in the head and neck and brain, and then mostly in the organ for CB2 receptors. And like I said, there's over 150 compounds. THC is one of those. That was first discovered in the 60s. And the endocannabinoid system was named after cannabinoids. It was discovered that they acted the same. The neurotransmitters in our body were receiving impulses and from cannabis. And they realized that our bodies communicate very well with it. And because they look and act like our own, the brain recognizes them and allows cannabis to affect our behaviors, our moods, our coordination. And so if you see that little diagram in the upper left corner with those little stalk-like things with the bubbles on them, those are trichomes. And the trichomes is where all the medicine is. That's where the cannabinoids and the terpenes are. And that's what gives the effects of cannabis. So yeah. If you've ever seen the buds, they're frosty looking. Those are that's the sugary substance. That's what those trichomes are. And if you've ever smoked hash or are familiar with it, that's what hash is made from. Okay. So the diagram there kind of just talks about some of the more common cannabinoids that people are familiar with, THC being one of them. CBD, which is very common. People are familiar with that. CBD and THC work better together and enhance each other. And that's the thing with all of these. They all work better together. Isolated, they don't work as effectively. But, and as you can see on the diagram, they all have anti-cancer properties that they talk about. And I believe that they work better together. I mean, there is products being developed now that are in the stores that, you know, are isolated cannabinoid profiling. I know from my own experience using some of these products that to combine them, you get a better benefit from them. So using CBD by itself, I know that people that use hemp CBD, it can be very effective. I mean, there's very trace amounts of THC in there, and they, like I said, they help enhance and make each other work better. So with CB, see here, CBN, I don't know if people are familiar with that, but that is called the sleeping cannabinoid. It helps people stay asleep. But when it's combined with CBG and THC, they work efficiently to be an anti-inflammatory. They help pain more efficiently and whatnot. Now, CBG is an up-and-comer, and I don't know if people are familiar with that cannabinoid. Everything I seek out for my symptoms, I always look for CBG. It is a remarkable cannabinoid. It has so many benefits. Not even what's listed on that graph there. There's no psychoactive activity in CBG, and it actually binds to both receptors, and it actually enhances every other cannabinoid that it's involved with. So CBG is called the mother of all cannabinoids.